Oh, thank you. Hi, welcome. It's Sunday, it's time for church. We made it, well done. I'm Mary Beth, I'm your service leader. Thank you so much, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Pensacola. Will you silence your cell phones while I'm thinking about it? Thank you so much. If you're new here, thank you so much for coming. I'm glad you found us, and better late than never. And we're so glad that you're here. And if you've been looking for a church family who loves you without asking questions and has no conditions, then you found us. This is us. Yay. If you're returning, welcome back. And if you're joining us online, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate everyone. If you are new and you didn't receive a pamphlet, we have some in the credenza back there. It just has some basic information about us. Best place to be or to look is our website, and it has everything about our church specifically and the Unitarian Universalists at large. So anything you want to know, fun and fellowship, how to give, whether that be time, talent, or treasure, who's in charge of the fun and fellowship, or who's in charge of the finances, how it all works. Everything is on our website. So you can check that out. And it also just has a whole bunch of information about who we are. So, I did a deep dive when I first found our church, and it's just interesting. Anywho, I'm rambling because I love our church and I love Unitarian Universalists. So just go to the website, please. Okay. What else? We're a lay-led congregation, so we don't have like a regular minister, in case if you're wondering. We have new speakers every week, which is fantastic. Some within our community, some outside of our community. So a different perspective every week. So come back next week and you'll get a whole new story, a whole new person, and I won't be up here. So if you already are like, this is too much, don't worry. I won't be here next week. I'll be here, but just with you. Next week is a special, thank you, Ed. Appreciate you. Next week is a special Sunday, but let me read a few announcements. First, we always have, after service, we always have snacks and goodies in the conference room, and that's just a social hour. We have people, members of the church, that just make it because we like to talk, we like to socialize, and we love sweets and coffee. So that's over there, but today, we still have that, but today is extra special because it is Sunday Sweets, and I have a little announcement. Hey, y'all, has your sweet tooth been aching? You're in luck, because we have been baking. So step right up, get in line. Our selection today is mighty fine. Thank you, Margaret. That was good. So yes, we have Sunday Sweets. It's a bake sale. I don't know if I said this, but we're member funded, solely member funded. We run on our membership and our friends and family and community. So if you're willing and able to give, buy some sweets. If it is, however, your first time or you haven't been here since we've had a Sunday Sweets, you get a free piece. So collect. Ian, he's been here for like a year now and still hasn't gotten it. And I told him I'm going to cut him off after some time. So I'll just get your free piece. Anywho, so tell Jack and Hannah-Laure and Patty and whoever else is back there that this is your first time, and they'll get you a free slice. If not, bring your cash. We can take Venmo, check, whatever. We'll figure it out. Okay, so there are still goodies in the conference room, coffee and all that, but also there's some extra items. If you guys did not see last Sunday or weren't here, we had a very special day, a time to remember May O'Shea, like a beloved member of our community who passed recently. So she left some really cool items for her church family as just like a take me with you kind of a thing throughout your life. I took a really cool shirt. So there's some more items back there. So if you want to browse, go back and look in the conference room because there's lots of things there. So, and I'm sure she would love that. Also, the Manna Food Pantry needs things, as I'm sure you guys can guess. I do know that they get lots of donations from grocery stores, like actual vegetables and fresh foods, so they really are looking for like canned items, non-perishables and things like that. So we have a collection going, and it looks super full the last time I checked, which is fantastic. So if you have some like canned goods or can buy some, I know they run specials on Amazon all the time for like canned chicken and things like that. That would be super appreciative. We'll collect that, and we have a person that takes that to Manna Food Pantry. So that's in the lobby, I do believe. Just look for the big mound of food, and that's probably it. Circle dinners. If you're new with us, this is something they've been doing for a while, I think. Linda Cobb, I believe, is here. Yeah, she's out in the foyer. She's in charge of this. This is a super cool way to get involved or reconnect with our community. If you're new and you don't know anyone, talk to her and sign up, because it's really cool. They have different people host and different people show up each circle dinner, so you get to know random members of our community. So yes, if you have questions, see her, or you can see me and I'll give her your contact information after church. My last announcement is for next Sunday. It is a very special time. For one, it's our bread communion. We have 4 communions throughout the year. There's bread, flour, water, and what's the 4th? I can't remember. Anywho, a 4th one. And it's really cool. But next week is the bread one, and it's also our Thanksgiving meal that we do every year. So we'll do a bread communion. And if you love to make bread or have wanted to make bread and just have been postponing it, now's your time, because we need bread. So, sign up. If you have questions, you can see me or Audrey there in the middle, and she's in charge of the bread service next week. But anywho, so we'll have bread, and then directly after service, we're going to have a big Thanksgiving meal. The turkey and the ham and drinks will be provided. So we're just asking that everybody bring a side dish to share, or a dessert, or both. That would be great. And yeah, it's right after service next Sunday, the 23rd. And also, after this service, if you're willing and able, we'd like to go ahead and set up the sanctuary for next week. So if you have some muscle or not have any back issues, please stay and help. Grab you some sweets first, and then come in here and help me set it up. Okay, that's a lot. Thank you so much for bearing with me. Thank you. Okay. Now's the time where we light our chalice. I'm going to have Joe light it for us, and have some words by Deborah Falk. A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundations of freedom, reason, and welcome, a faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that envisions a world flourishing with equality for all people, a faith that demands the living out of goodness, a faith that requires thoughtfulness, a faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of that spark of all of this within each of us. Maybe so. Okay, let's turn to our neighbor real quick. Whichever side. And just ask him one question. Are you? You? Are you? 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 I'm you. I'm you. You. Me. Yes. Yeah. I got something to tell you after service. I got something to tell you. It's tea. It's tea. I'm telling you, it happened right after the hospital. Yeah. Okay. Now that we got that question out of the way, we have a responsive reading. So if you guys will reach under your seat or in the seat in front of you, it's this old hymnal here, and it's number 444. 444. Yes, 444. And I'll read the bold if you'll read the italicized bits. 444. We there? Okay. This house for the ingathering of nature and human nature. It is a house of freedom, guarding the dignity and worth of every person. It offers a platform for the free voice, for declaring of the times of security and danger, the full and undivided conflict of humanity. It is a house of truth-seeking, where scientists can encourage devotion to their quest, where mystics can abide in a community of searchers. It is a house of prophecy, outrunning times past and times present in visions of growth and progress. This house is a cradle for our dreams, the workshop of our common endeavor. Thank you. I'm going to ask the choir to come up. And we have a cool song that was written by Kenneth Patton, a kind of a famous UU. And then Mike, our very own Mike Kilmer, put some music to it. The lyrics will be up here on the screen if you would care to sing with us.
These words are by the same guy that responds. When they were like inventing hymn singing. Pretty cool, you.
To stand and recite our covenant will be up here. You'll say that with us. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you, choir. Now is the time where we can share our joys and sorrows with our community. It's not recorded online, it's not shared on our YouTube channel, it's just here today for us that have shown up and want to share something that they want to celebrate with us or, need someone to help mourn with you. So now is that time, and you can line up on either side, and we'll light a candle if you'll briefly give your name and briefly something that you'd like to share. And the first candle I'll light will be a big encompassing candle, something that's going on all over the world, lots of things going on all over the world. So, to kind of save time, we'll light that one candle. shall we sing the children out? Are we singing them out? I think they're all out, most of them. But just in case, let's sing it anyway. Yeah. Go now in peace. Go now in joy. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, Ooh, yeah. Nice. All right, so as many of you know, or may not know, I think I said it earlier, but to reiterate, this church is run based on us, from our community. So now is the time where we take up a treasure, anything that you can and are able to and willing to give. You can give online, you can send us a check. And I think we have like reoccurring payments, so you can set it and forget it. But if you have something you want to put in the cute little basket, we'll have our ushers pass that around while the musicians play a little ditty. Thank you. And thank you to everybody. Thank you for the support. We appreciate it. We do put it to good use, just so you know. But if you want to know where your money goes, you can look that up on our website. Okay. Down to business. Our speaker is one of our board members and a familiar face around here. He has been diving deep into the history of the Unitarian Universalists. He's learned a ton and has been willing and gracious enough to share that with us. And now he's ready to share the final piece of that journey with us. So please give a warm welcome to our very own Mark Swaney.
Full house today. That's good. I was afraid everybody's going to stay home. I didn't want to hear it. I previously presented a sketch history of the Unitarians up to the American Revolution. That was the first one. Then on this second occasion, I presented a history of the Universalists from the time of their organization, which was also the time of the American Revolution, up through 1961. I'll finally finish this series. Do what? Can you hear now? Okay, sorry about that. I'll finally finish this series with the history of the Unitarians from the time of the Revolution through their merger with the Universalists in 1961. And now, when I first started reading about Unitarian history in America, I was very surprised to learn how many of the founding fathers were either Unitarians or Universalists, or else they were deists. Deists, briefly, deists were people who believed in God and not much else. They had all kinds of beliefs aside from their belief in God, so it's hard to characterize them as a group. But there were a lot of deists who were also founding fathers. John Adams was a member of the Unitarian Church, and so is his son, John Quincy Adams. Thomas Jefferson usually referred to himself as a Unitarian. James Madison, father of the Constitution, was influenced by deism. Thomas Paine was a deist, and so was Benjamin Franklin. And Benjamin Rush was signer of the Declaration of Independence and was Washington's doctor and was a Universalist. So if anybody tries to say we're not Americans, you can tell them, no, we are. Yeah, and we're all the way back to the beginning. We pick up the history of the Unitarians in the United States just after the Revolution. The Congregational churches, that's the name of the descendants of the old Puritan churches. The Unitarian churches evolved out of the Congregational Puritan churches of the founding members of the original Massachusetts colony. Because the original colonists were isolated so far away from authorities in England, the Puritans were in early America. They created their own structures, organizations, and theology, which was strictly Calvinist. Being Calvinists, the old Puritans were rather intolerant in their official theology. However, they more or less had to allow each church to manage their own business and select their own ministers. This is because in the early days there was a lot of territory between the churches. They couldn't, congregate together so easily, not as a whole group. The organizational structure of the first Puritan churches was called congregational, in order to indicate that each individual church had its own authority. They were free to decide among themselves what they wanted to preach about, what they wanted to talk about, and how they wanted to go forward. At first, there was no need for the Puritans to impose uniformity in belief on all of the churches, because at the time, there was no dissension. They all agreed. They all had the same theology. So it never happened that these early Puritan churches ever said, everybody's got to believe the same thing. So they started out as Congregationalists. Time went by, the Congregationalist churches began to explore their own ideas. And gradually, some of them became more liberal in their beliefs than the others. However, there was no mechanism within the congregational system to force a conformity on all these churches. So they were allowed to basically go their own way as time went on. After more than 100 years, the Congregationalist churches developed factions of differing beliefs. Think of the Congregational churches of the 1800s as having two different wings, one liberal, one conservative, but they're all still part of the Congregational system. These terms only mean that the liberals were willing to introduce new ideas and the conservatives were not. Eventually, there was conflicts between the groups over theology. By the time the Revolutionary War was over, Unitarian ideas had already spread to quite a few of the Congregational churches, largely because of the Unitarian emphasis on freedom of religion. By 1800 in Massachusetts, west of, now I'm going to say this the best I can, I got told I was not pronouncing these New England towns properly. Worcester County. I guess it's like the same as Worcestershire sauce. West of Worcester County, 125 of the 200 churches were liberal in their theology. In Plymouth County, 18 of the 20 churches were liberal, and in Boston, 8 of the 9 churches were liberal. The conservatives were worried, and they felt it necessary to publicly call out the liberals and condemn their unorthodox religious ideas, fearing that the popularity of what they called Unitarianism would finally result in the eclipse of their own theology. As a result, they started to demand that the Congregational churches require all their parishioners to subscribe to creeds, stated versions of beliefs such as the Nicene Creed and the Athanasian Creed, both of which refer to the Trinity. These demands were resisted by the liberal wing of the churches, being seen as divisive and contrary to the principle of freedom of conscience. The liberals of the Congregational churches were not Unitarians as we think of ourselves today. They did not call themselves Unitarians. Most of them would probably be better described as Arians, yet another variety of Christian belief about Jesus that was similar, but not exactly the same as Unitarianism. However, due to the independence of the Congregational churches, the conservatives had no authority to require the imposition of creeds on all the churches in the denomination. The liberal ministers of the Congregational churches did not generally say much about their rejection of the doctrine of the Trinity. They simply didn't preach or talk about it that much. This resistance to debate was openly the resistance to debate the topic openly was offensive to the conservatives. They thought the liberals were deliberately refusing to engage in debate on the subject because they were conspiring to gradually seduce the church into what the conservatives considered to be heresy. One ardent opponent of the liberal ministers in their churches was this guy, Jedediah Morse of Cambridge. Starting in 1800, he and his allies tried to have the liberal ministers kicked out of the annual convention of Congregational churches. This attempt failed. However, the controversy went on for years, and in 1815, Dr. Morse decided he had found a way to force an open debate with the liberals. Dr. Morse had read a book by Thomas Belsham, in which Thomas Belsham had reviewed the Unitarians of New England and mistakenly tagged them as being Unitarians. They didn't think they were. And so he thought that this guy thought this was an opportunity to draw the liberals out and have a debate out in the open. So he wrote a pamphlet that copied one chapter of this book and spread it around and then added to it saying, look, see, this is what they really believe and they won't tell you. Then, this guy, it was necessary, they saw that, okay, we have to talk about it in public, so we will. And this guy, William Ellery Channing, wrote a public letter that laid out the position of the liberal clerics. He denied that the liberals rejected the divinity of Jesus, stating that they were Arians and therefore believed that Jesus was the Son of God, but they did not believe that he had always existed, which was the Orthodox Christian belief. This exchange of public writings by Morse and Channing did not settle the issue. The liberals gave up trying to explain to the public the difference between being an Arian and being a Unitarian, and they simply accepted the label that had been put on them by their opponents. In time, the label would become accurate. The real result of the controversy was to motivate the liberal churches of the Congregational system to increase their efforts at establishing new liberal churches in Congregational system. These efforts bore fruit. Several new churches in major cities were established as a result. On the other hand, in 1816, many members of Dr. Morse's church in Charlestown left his congregation to form a new Unitarian church. And the next year, the remaining members kicked him out, and he subsequently left the ministry altogether. And irony on ironies, Dr. Morse's son, famous man, Samuel Morse, inventor of the Morse code, eventually became a radical Unitarian. In the following years, Unitarianism grew throughout the enlarged United States, and Unitarianism reached into the north and south coastal states, as well as the frontier states of the West. Not only that, but over time, the Arian position that had been the majority view of the liberal ministers gradually morphed into the Unitarian position that Jesus had been and always remained a human being. Following the previous controversy, there was another problem within the Congregational churches, and that concerned church property. When enough members of a Congregational church became Unitarian, the others frequently decided to leave that church. That brought up the question of who gets the church property. It was finally settled in 1820 by the court in the Dedham case in favor of those that remained in the church, regardless of how long the leavers had been there before the Unitarians. The decision of the court resulted in a windfall of property for the Unitarians of Massachusetts. Also in 1820, a first step was taken by the Unitarians towards separating themselves from their conservative brethren. They formed the Berry Street Conference, which, among other things, resolved to engage in a publication of religious tracts. 5 years later, the second meeting of the Berry Street Conference resulted in a unanimous decision to form the American Unitarian Association. This action was a big step for the liberal churches, but it was not yet a new denomination. The AUA was not an organization of churches, but was rather an organization of individual members, those that believed themselves to be in line with the Unitarians. The growth of Unitarianism continued through the 1830s, which saw the final separation of church and state in Massachusetts. And in 1838, a momentous event occurred that permanently changed the Unitarian churches and the Unitarian outlook on religion. This event was a single speech. I think you guys have heard about this. An address to the graduating class of the Harvard Divinity School by this guy, Ralph Waldo Emerson. That speech was perhaps the most controversial speech ever heard in that place up to that time. In his address, Emerson put forward a challenge to the rationalism of the Enlightenment philosophy that had up to that time dominated the thinking of the Unitarians. Emerson was a convert to the Romantic age, which emphasized the more emotional aspects of our human existence. This idea was powerful and was eventually adopted into mainstream Unitarianism and emphasized the experience of appreciating beauty, the natural world, and the awe of all creation. Emerson did not replace rationality in Unitarian thought, but he did add to it. Emerson's speech started a controversy in the Unitarian churches of the time. Some thought it an atheistic philosophy, discounting the supernatural in religion. A storm broke out on the subject, and people were writing about it everywhere. Emerson did not write anything further to defend his speech, but several Unitarian ministers in Boston did. And among them was a very important figure in the history of 19th century American Unitarianism, this guy named Theodore Parker. Parker had been present at the Harvard Divinity speech, and it affected him greatly. Later, he delivered a sermon that went even further than Emerson had. His sermon was titled The Transient and the Permanent in Christianity. In his sermon, Parker held that Christianity could not be proved by the Bible, but instead was proved by the message, by the truth. He stated that even if Jesus had never existed, Christianity would still stand because it is the truth, quoting him now, like the axioms of geometry, because it is true and is to be tried by the oracle that God places in the breast. For many of the Unitarians of the time, Parker was going too far. He was denounced by many in and out of the Unitarian Church, and he was pressured to resign from the Boston Association of Congregational Ministers. Parker was not listed in the Unitarian Yearbook after 1846. However, he did have his supporters, and he became the minister of the 28th Congregational Society and eventually was more and more popular, and he was also a writer. These two guys used phrases they got from Thomas Parker, or Theodore Parker. Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King each used some phrases from Parker's writings, including of the people, by the people, and for the people, and also that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. The country was soon after obsessed with the issue of slavery, and the Unitarians were no exception. Most Unitarians were abolitionists, including Theodore Parker, who was known to harbor runaway slaves before the war, defying the Fugitive Slave Act. When the war broke out in 1861, 60 Unitarian ministers signed up to join the Union Army. Uncounted numbers of ordinary Unitarian men also joined the Union Army and served in the war. The war was a searing experience for the whole nation, and when it was over, people found that not only had the nation had changed, they themselves had changed. The old way of thinking about one's local area had been replaced with the awareness of living in a grand unity, a great nation. Even before the war ended in December of 1864, this guy that I mentioned once before, a Unitarian minister and head of the U.S. Sanitation Commission, called for a meeting in New York City to create the National Conference of Unitarian Churches. Along with raising money to go towards founding new churches, the convention also proposed a union of Unitarians and Universalists. I think that's the first time that happened. There was, however, a controversy around the National Conference. The conflict between conservatives and liberals, now called radicals. You start out being liberal, you wind up being radical, I don't know. Was still going on, and the result of all the arguing and dissension within the National Conference of the Unitarian Churches was that the conservatives finally succeeded in 1870 in having the conference reaffirm their allegiance to Jesus Christ. Struggle between the radical and conservatives in the Unitarian Church continued throughout the rest of the 1800s. The yearbook controversy was another example of this trouble. The yearbook published pictures of Unitarian ministers. One year, a radical Unitarian asked that his name be removed from the yearbook because having it there implied that he was a Christian, since they had previously affirmed their allegiance to Jesus Christ, and he did not consider himself to be a Christian. After his name was removed at his request, the yearbook then went ahead and removed the names of all the other radicals that they thought were Christian. And they did this without the permission of the people whose names were taken out. In 1884, the Unitarians finally finished their long journey of separation from the old Congregational churches of Massachusetts by becoming members of the American Unitary Association. Remember that before they were just people who were members, now there are churches who are members, thereby making the AUA not merely an association of individuals, but a full-fledged denomination in their own right. By 1900, the denomination was twice the size it had been in 1865 when the National Conference was established. The new century brought its own controversies. The Unitarians had embarked on a program known as the social gospel, where churches, including others besides the Unitarians, made efforts in a number of areas to improve life for the poor and the oppressed. We're still doing this. This is what, Just Pensacola is all about. It's a perfect example of the social gospel and us involved with other churches. However, when World War I broke out, the AUA urged the churches in the association to support the war effort. The conference also stated that it would not support any church whose minister did not support the war, violating the cherished principle of church independence. This temporary retreat from a basic principle of the Unitarian churches illustrates that Unitarians are also a part of the national establishment and are subject to being swayed by conformist thinking in a time of national stress. This guy, John Haynes Holmes, was the minister of the Church of Messiah in New York, and he and his church refused to support the war and withdrew from the American Unitarian Association until after the war was over. At that time, the AUA thought better of its action and apologized for the position it took, requiring support for the war from the member churches. The apology was accepted, and the Church of the Messiah rejoined the AUA, but that was not the last that the AUA was to hear from this man. Holmes was a radical in the Unitarian churches because of his ideas about religion. Holmes did not think that religion required a belief in the supernatural, and he called for a religion based on the natural world, and one which shifted its concern from thinking about God to thinking about humanity. In doing so, Holmes foreshadowed the humanist controversy of the early 20th century. The humanists in the Unitarian churches generally either did not think that the concept of God was important, or else they simply made the focus of the activity of the church about saving lives rather than saving souls. With such a shift in focus, it was not necessary to be an atheist to be a humanist, but neither was it necessary to believe in God or Jesus or the Bible to be a Unitarian. Once again, in the history of the Unitarian Church, this shift did not come easily or quickly. Conservatives opposed this shift in emphasis, fearing that it signaled the cutting of the last tenuous ties between Unitarianism and its traditional Western views of what a religion is, and that is namely a collection of related beliefs about the relationship of the supernatural world to the natural world. Humanists, for their part, did not believe in the existence of a supernatural world. Proponents of the new humanist group of Unitarians included Charles Francis Potter, Curtis W. Reese, and John H. Dietrich. Reese opened the discussion in 1920 in an address to the Harvard Summer School of Theology. Here's a quotation from his speech. "The method of religious liberalism has always been that of reflection, not that of authority. Liberalism has insisted on the essentially natural character of religion. Liberalism is building a religion that would not be shaken even if the thought of God were outgrown." One outspoken opponent of the humanist view was William L. Sullivan, formerly a Catholic priest, who in the 1921 National Conference debated with John Dietrich, minister of the Minneapolis Unitarian Church. The echoes of that debate continued throughout the Unitarian world during the decade of the 20s. In 1933, in Chicago, a group of humanists issued the Humanist Manifesto, which, among other things, saw the universe as self-existing and not an invention of a creator God, rejected revelation as a basis for religion, and affirmed science as the proper basis for all knowledge of the universe. The manifesto was signed by a number of Unitarian ministers and one Universalist minister. The pressure of the new developments in the Unitarian humanists likely brought about a new group within the church, the Unitarian Christian Fellowship. They continue to be a source of Christian witness within Unitarianism. You can be a Christian and be a Unitarian. You can be a humanist. Yeah, there's one. I know one over there. There's in addition to the humanist issue, the 1930s were tough times in America for everybody, including the Unitarians. There had been some new churches that had failed and other disappointments. Well, it was a Great Depression. A lot of new enterprises failed at that time. But the Unitarians did not stop their efforts. In 1934, in response to a report of an 8-member commission of appraisal on how to reinvigorate the Unitarian Church, titled Unitarians Face a New Age, certain structural changes were made in the organization, and the presidency was strengthened. By 1937, Dr. Elliott, president of the AUA, carried out the recommendations of the commission, and a new period of growth and action followed. Then, in the 1950s, discussion began on a merger of the Unitarians and the Universalists, which finally happened in May of 1961, creating the Unitarian Universalist Association, of which our church is a part. That's it.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for all your hard work on that. Appreciate it. We'll have some closing words, and then I'll invite the choir up to lead us in our closing song. And our closing words are by Theodore Parker. Remember him from earlier? He says, "Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Its profession of faith, divine living." Shall we stand and sing? Yeah. It's in your old hymnal under your seat there, number 347, and the choir will come up. This hymnal here. It's a couple of pages, so don't get confused. Flip to the next page for the other words there. 347.
Our separate fires
y'all so much for joining us. Don't forget about Sunday sweets and also goodies and Mayo Shays things in the conference room. And don't forget about Thanksgiving meal. Bring a friend next Sunday. Okay, love you. Go in peace. Bye-bye.
Everybody take a decor item.
Yeah,
Side room. Take it out.
in the conference.